And also, they're just a Volkswagen with a prettier shape.
I'll fight you.
But they are.
Wow, that is so cool. Let's go. It's classic. If it sounds too good to be true, it is.
Yep.
And it was.
The unfortunate thing about that is fads come and go. So
Right.
that's not going to retain value.
Yeah.
No, say it's not true.
Welcome to the Set and Bent podcast. Today we have a super special guest, Ryan Krauss, and today we're going to go over a bunch of cool stuff because you do a bunch of cool stuff. He's a master level metal shaper and amongst other amazing things. So let's get into it. What would you say you do just meeting some rando at a party?
Typically, I just say I work on Porsches. Just keep it simple.
Okay.
That's an extreme oversimplification.
It's extreme. But like, what do you guys do when you say, like, you're at a party, right? And they're like, what do you do for a living? You're like,
YouTube.
yeah. But then, you know, it starts a whole, like, snowball.
Yeah, YouTuber
it's terrible.
does start a
Yeah,
thing.
and I'm the kind of person that, like, doesn't start conversations. I'm like the, like, keep it surface so I can, like, bounce away, usually. So I don't want to do that.
So you're just like, I work on Porsches, turn around, walk away.
And they're like, Porsches?
And you're like, sure.
Yeah.
Little do they know that you custom handcraft like crazy bodywork.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, but if I got to get like more in detail, then I'll be like, yeah, I do like custom work on Porsches, or I specialize in metal shaping or metal work or metal fab kind of thing. But I do a little bit of everything.
Wow. What's the most valuable car you've ever worked on?
I worked on a 25th anniversary edition Lamborghini Countach once.
Huh?
Oh, that's a little bit of money.
That's
Yeah.
a little
I
bit.
didn't do much to it, but you know, I got to sit in it and stuff.
What was that? You were sending me pictures like last year of some super rare
Yeah, it was a
supercar.
Bizzarini like 90 something 100 GT. I don't know. It's like a 1 point something $1 million car. So I guess that's the most expensive car I worked on. But that I didn't do anything to. It was just in the shop, and they're bleeding the brakes. But
Oh, okay. Well, what's, I guess, the nicest car you've had to cut into? Because for me, it's like something nice and rare. Like, it's like a legend, you know? Like, people have a poster of this car on their wall, and you go, ying.
I mean, I like name a 911, and I've done that to it. So
Yeah.
and people have lots of 911s on their walls when they're kids.
Is that something you're just fully used to, full confidence?
A car's a car to me at this point. You know,
Wow.
I started out working on doing collision repair in like a general dealership, working on like Corollas and you know whatnot, and then started working in a Porsche shop. And like the first year, I was like, this is like nerve wracking. But then at the end of the day, it's just metal. You know, it's all the same.
Metal's very forgiving because like if you mess it up, you can cut it apart and weld it back together and weld more to it and shrink it and stretch it. And
you waste time, but at the end of the day, it can still be a quality project.
For some reason, to me, it just seems like that metal is extra special because of what it is.
Yeah, there's certainly.
I mean, millions of people agree with you, and that's why Ryan has a job. Because what's the car that you were working on when we were there, or well, it was just on the rotisserie, the 356.
Yeah.
That's like there's like 2% of the body that's even left original, and it's still to someone worth completely restoring it. Like it's been rusted out and patched with like soda cans and stuff for like the last 50 years.
Literally had a coffee can. There was literally a coffee can in the quarter panel. It was a Folgers coffee
welded
can.
into it?
No, it was like glued and riveted in.
Yeah.
And really?
Yeah. Because you got to remember, like these cars, like at one point weren't that valuable. Like a 356, like it's extremely valuable now. And at some point, yes, it's more valuable than like a Corolla, but still, like you could have gotten like a 356 for less than $10,000 at one point.
So that's why these older cars are even more valuable now, because a lot of people just let them die.
Pretty much, yeah. And they're old. I mean, you're talking about like the 50s and 60s cars that like just all rotted out because they didn't really know what rust prevention was at the time.
And also, they're just a Volkswagen with a prettier shape.
I'll fight you.
But they are.
You're right. I refer to them as spicy Beetles, but yeah.
A spicy Beetle. I like that. Yeah.
What is the channel car? I guess we should also mention that's like your day-to-day is more making YouTube videos or working on client work in the shop.
So it's kind of supposed to be like a 50-50, but it depends on the week. If we're really behind, it's on one or the other kind of thing. It takes more precedence. But the like typical workflow is the first half of the week I'm working on a YouTube project. Then the second half of the week I'm trying to catch up with customer work. That's the goal. It kind of, varies depending on.
And let the people in on the YouTube project, because that's a pretty special.
Yeah. So like I co-own Crucible Coachworks with Tony Miller. He's my business partner, and he's also on the channel with me. And we are building a 1960s inspired vintage supercar. We took a 90s Porsche Boxster that we got for $500 that was going to go to basically a junkyard because the engine blew up on it. And then we just stripped all the body panels off of it, slapped a Ford 5-liter into it, extended the wheelbase, and then we're going to reskin the entire car, like 60s inspired. We just did all the clay design work for it. It's like a little bit of like Lamborghini Miura mixed with GT40, some other flares that we came up with, but we're doing a whole like handcrafted aluminum body for it, inside and out.
Super low, super wide.
The thing is
really
gnarly.
Nice.
Yeah, it's real gnarly. And like the engine, so the engine is kind of a cool story too. So Tony's late father had this engine in his Mustang Fox body, and Tony had the idea he wanted to use it in a project one day. So we're like, we're going to use this engine for that. So like, it's a little controversial that we're putting like a 5-liter into it because like supercar and that doesn't really go together. But we're going to build the engine up to be like 450 horsepower or something like that.
Which is vastly more than any car in the 60s ever had.
So and the car weighs like nothing because it's going to be half aluminum. So
right,
yeah. That's what's wild to me is when I see your updates throughout the. How long have you been working on this thing?
That project, we only started it maybe 4 months ago, maybe 5.
Okay.
Yeah,
you see the steps over time though, and it's like the amount of attention into each little square inch is unbelievable.
Build up the tolerances. When you're starting like that, like torn, Ethan, when you have something that torn down, it really matters that you're precise because it's just going to build up over time. So if you fudge a couple millimeters here, it's going to turn to a couple inches later. Like it's gotta be precise.
I know that very well. Most of my projects grow in size.
Just get more and more asymmetrical as time goes on.
Will doesn't measure in millimeters, and actually Will doesn't measure in inches either. He takes the tape measure, he pulls it out, and then he makes a mark with a Sharpie where the thing is, and then he carries it over, and so the tape measure is just all Sharpie marks now.
Yeah.
So it's not like 16 inches and 16 and 5/16. It's just that Sharpie mark.
Yeah. So I mean, if you want me to cut your Porsche apart, I mean, I could do that. And it might just be a little different.
It could be a Will edition.
Yeah, it's special.
Yeah.
Built
there's
different.
plenty of people who make body kits who are famous for them hand doing it, right?
Yeah, RWB.
Ask Ryan his opinion on RWB.
What do you think about RWB?
I have no opinion. My professional business side is I have no opinion.
Oh, well,
I have no statements.
It sounds like you do.
It sounds like you have opinion.
Ryan has very strong opinions.
Let me.
I do too.
I'll leave it. I'll leave it at this because I don't like to particularly trash anybody else's thing. Especially like I can respect the grind that he does. I mean, the dude can charge like $40K to pop rivets and flares and bumpers on a car. Like,
oh yeah,
who else could get away with that? Like, genuinely.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like it's a completely different world than like what I do and some of the people I know do. So it's like I don't want to like I have like a thing like I don't want to trash anybody else's like art, but it's not something I would ever spend money on.
Yep. Makes sense.
Use my words very carefully here.
Well, I'm not in that world. I can say whatever I want.
You can, absolutely.
I think that the value is getting to spend that time with him. I think he's cool. He's chain smoking. He's cutting into your Porsche.
Chain smoking is cool.
You get it looks cool. It's like you get to experience that, be a part of it. And a lot of people who get it done are like filming it and putting it on social media. I think he kind of sells an experience.
Yeah.
It's like,
I mean,
it's a pretty cool experience.
I'll send you a meme later. That sums it up.
It's what most things that are overpriced. That's what they're selling. I mean, the Porsche that you're starting with is already they're selling you an experience. They're selling you a story.
They're selling you
about an experience that you're going to have by owning this car. So RWB is the same thing. He's selling you a story about what it's like to have your car modified by him.
The unfortunate thing about that is fads come and go. So that's not going to retain value.
Yeah.
No, say it's not true.
It's not. I'm saying it now. It's not going to retain value. It's just like any other fad. Think of anything else that out there that I can't think of an example offhand right now. But someone spent 50K on their car that's worth 50K, and it's not going to be worth 100K.
Yeah. Yeah, for
but
sure.
Maybe it's worth 100K to them. So if that's the value that they want for themselves, it's okay.
And I think that is what it is.
It's not hurting anybody else.
Marketing and the story. Like, the better the story, the more valuable that experience is.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, we sell stories.
Yeah. That's what we're in the business of doing, right?
Yeah. We make things that are like almost entirely worthless compared to something you could just buy off a shelf, like a 4-wheeler or a dirt bike.
Yeah.
But the story of how it's made and why it's made is valuable enough to want to spend an hour watching it.
Exactly. And time is the most valuable thing that you can spend.
Yeah. And people trash on us all the time. And it's all good because it's true. It's like, this is so pointless. Buy a 4-wheeler.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. If you want to have fun in the woods on a 4-wheel drive machine, buy a 4-wheeler.
Or spend 600 hours building a 4-wheeler that's less reliable, less capable, but looks really cool.
And it's yours.
And it's, there's that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's more valuable to me, but that's because I built it. So
yeah. There's so much valuable in doing something yourself, especially if it's creative. That's the dream.
Look at the Monster Chopper. That's not a vehicle that's meant to be high performance by any means.
No.
However, the value that you're creating right there, Ethan, is like chef's kiss, you know?
Yeah. Exactly.
And I think too, like, there's even like the Barbie Jeep is a good example.
Yeah.
On the novelty value. Like, Ethan built that. I didn't build any of it. But I feel so much better driving that than anything else, because it's like, you just know how cute it looks, but you also know that you can do wheelies and 50-foot jumps like nothing.
Yep.
So it's like, I just think that has so much built-in value as driving it. And I think if you're really into wide-body Porsches, then when you're driving this RWB, you're like, I made it. Like,
yeah.
My business did well enough for me to do this. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
We're just bar hopping in Florida, getting it done. Like, I don't know.
I mean, all the Gen Z kids will love you too. So that's
why, like,
that's the rage there, right?
That's also why, like, any Porsche is worth, way more than a BRZ, even though, like, technically on a track, BRZ is one of the best production track cars, like, that's ever been built. But no one cares because it doesn't feel like a Porsche does.
It's also, it's a Subaru. So
yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like, if you
so it's better.
Yeah,
we're gonna be fighting all around by the end of this podcast.
If you didn't have any knowledge of car culture or like the supposed value of a Porsche versus a BRZ, and somebody just gave you both of them and you drove them around the track.
Yeah.
You'd pick whichever one was the better driving experience.
You'd probably have more fun in the BRZ.
That's not true.
I mean,
that's not. Think about how.
I haven't driven either on the track. I'm not saying. I'm not saying you would choose the BRZ. I'm just saying you wouldn't choose the Porsche because it's a Porsche. You'd choose whichever car drove better, and that's the story part that we've been talking about. It's like, that's why people have brand preference and everything else, because like, it's not about which one's actually better at doing the thing. Just like the Barbie Jeep, is it better at doing the thing? No. But it feels so cool driving it.
Does feel really cool driving.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think if you polled most people, like, would you rather have this Barbie Jeep or a sports quad? Like, even people who don't follow us would probably be like, yo, that Barbie Jeep goes hard.
Yeah.
I choose that one.
and exclusivity. There's only one of that. You know? I mean, same thing with cars. Like, there's way more, Subarus on the road than there are Porsches. At least until the head gaskets blow.
Now, way more Subarus in garages than there are Porsches too. Just getting their head gaskets glued back together.
They're just in the driveway, not the garage.
I don't know. I think Subarus drive around on the road a lot more than
on the road, 100%.
Yeah. 100%, yeah.
Also, Porsches aren't exactly reliable either.
It depends on the model. Yeah. It depends on the model. I mean, when it comes to like German cars, Porsche's up there. It depends on the model. Like an average like Boxster, like you can just hop in and go and not really have many problems.
I guess what I mean by reliable isn't the right word there.
Yeah.
I've seen the shenanigans involved in fixing those cars.
Oh, yes. Again, also European vehicle problems.
Nightmare, yeah. Well, and like rear engine vehicle problems and mid-engine vehicle problems. Like it's so much worse. Anyway,
Do they have head gasket issues? Just like, huh?
You were really hoping they did, didn't you?
Working at this Porsche shop for, I think it's going to be 8 years this year. 7 or 8, I forget which. It doesn't matter. But I've never seen a head gasket issue the entire time I worked there.
We have a dream sponsor for the Sent and Bent podcast, and that is Onyx Off-Road. We love this application. We use it all the time to find our snowmobile trails, off-road trails, trail ratings, pictures and reviews of what the trail is like. There's just everything you need to have a good time, all in one spot. We also use it to see where private and public lands meet, and if you need to cross private land, there is contact information for someone that you could try to get a hold of to get permission to do that crossing. So check out Onyx Off-Road. The link is in our description, and enjoy the Sent and Bent podcast. Being in and out of all these nice cars every day, what do you think is like the chef's kiss car? Like, what would you get, or what do you have?
That I've driven? Or
that you've driven or that you drool over. Like, you see one and you're like, dang.
I will always drool over like a 993 Turbo or like 993 C4S. Like that era 911 I really like. And like for practicality, like the good balance of like performance to reliability, like a 997 GT3. That's like the perfect car in my opinion. But and additionally though, the problem with like being around so many like high-end cars is like I'm dumb to it now. Like the Chang-Li excites me more.
Oh my gosh, let's go.
It's just because it's so whimsical, and like I've never seen a Chang-Li before.
Yeah.
I've seen hundreds of 911s. I've driven hundreds of 911s, but I've never driven a Chang-Li.
This man essentially said that the Chang-Li is better than a 911 Turbo.
That's what I heard as well.
And at the end of the day, though, it's about the story. We've been talking about that.
Yeah.
Like it's about the story. It's about like how like unattainable it is too, right? A Chang-Li, sure, it's attainable, but I'm not going to spend 10 grand on a Chang-Li.
No.
But when you see it go 46 miles in a YouTube video, you're like, dang,
that video
that's
was
nice.
really good, by the way. Props
You
to
like
you guys.
that one?
Yeah, I like that video a lot.
That was a experiment for the movie. So we put a lot of extra, I guess not time and energy into actually filming it. You could tell it was like our little handy cam. It wasn't even our good camera.
Yeah.
Like it was just Will and I. So our day-to-day Grind Hard video actually has a lot more time spent into the filming.
Yeah.
But the amount we recorded and the way we recorded it, like we went into that thinking, can we make a simple adventure an hour-long thing? And it ended up being, what, an hour 20? Something like that. But
and
I
feel like there could have been more to it too. Like it was so good that like when it ended, I was like, oh, it's over already. Like I didn't think it was an hour and a half. You know what I mean?
That's good to hear. I spent so much time going over it in the edit that I thought that there were some scenes that I could have made a lot shorter.
I know that feeling entirely. Like pacing a video is so tough.
It's the hardest part.
And like you know, you do it enough that like you get a good like internal clock for it that like you just know, like you can even know how long you're editing one part. You're like, hey, I'm done. Like I know that's good. But then you question, like you said, you question it later. You're like, I could have cut that out or not or whatever. But the pacing in that video was really good, especially for what you were working with.
There was this 4.5 minute scene of Will and I talking about how we like forgot about the shovel falling off the chain.
I remember that.
You didn't think that was too long?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Edwin, calm down.
All
Calm
my
down.
stuff. I'm getting too excited.
Talking about the Chang-Li.
He's knocked over his pink Stanley thermos.
Well, Ryan, if you actually did want to work with us full time, you're going about it the right way
Oh no.
by talking about Chang-Li.
Just talk about the Chang-Li.
Being
every
excited
day.
about Chang-Li's, that's how you get hired.
I think Will and I were watching. Let's see here. What happened that Ethan and Steven were gone at the same time?
You mean when we were picking up the snowcat, maybe?
No, it was
Which project was it?
More recently?
when we were watching Top Gear together.
That was only for one day, Ethan.
Yeah, so maybe you guys were just
It
getting
was
the snowcat.
Yeah.
Okay, so that day at lunch, we polled the audience on YouTube and we said, what's your favorite Top Gear special? And one of the common answers was the Burma episode.
Okay, yeah.
Where they get the lorries and they,
Yeah,
that was a good one.
it's a really good one. And Will and I were watching that, and we're always watching everything in our space. You know, we're watching Whistle and Diesel, Heavy D Sparks, and we were just looking at these almost more episodic formats than what we do.
Okay.
Like, I think what we do that's different is it's like you're a fly on the wall. You feel like you're hanging out with us.
Yeah.
At least that's what
like,
I'm going
like more
for, is like an
vloggy.
editor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that's what Steven captures as a filmer, is like these just real moments.
Yeah.
And it's more candid. It's not like that force. Mm-hmm. And so that's hard to do for a really long video, because if you're just hanging out with us, it could seem to get kind of boring to hang out with us for that long, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So these channels that I mentioned, like especially Top Gear, you can tell there's a lot of scripted stuff, but then there's also the unscripted stuff. And the unscripted stuff, I think unanimously people think is better.
Oh yeah.
Like when
It's
you
also, like,
think
the
of
most
those
valuable
viral
thing.
moments, or like when TikTok was first bumping off and people were just copying everyone else's stuff and just stealing it and uploading it, the scenes you saw from Top Gear weren't the scripted, like it was just like the funny jank
That's a good
stuff,
point.
you know,
Yeah.
like that is what those real moments, I think that is what people like the best. And so we knew we were going to do the 100-mile challenge. We were just having lunch, watching Top Gear, and we were like, if we just do it and have a camera on the entire time and just edit it in a way that's like all natural occurring moments, like we didn't need to make any of that up. Like our mac and cheese was terrible.
Oh God, not the mac and cheese.
It was just doomed from the actual start. I actually just watched it again like the other night.
Yeah.
And there's this whole scene where we're just trying to get up the road to start the 100-mile challenge, and we realize the battery is half dead, and this random guy's dog pees on the car.
I remember that. Yep.
And I was like as I was editing it, I was like, okay, if I was trying to do this big, viral, engaging moment, I wouldn't use any of this. But I was like, I think that in order to make a movie that feels real, that's what happened.
Yep.
Like to add to that too, like we found the same thing in our own channel too, because we were mainly just showing like the cool stuff, like the viral stuff, the stuff that you think like people like, if they saw this one clip of your video, they'd be like, these guys are freaking awesome, like, or this project's awesome or whatever. And then we switched, we like in the last probably 2 months, we did like a little like shift, because we wanted to make it more relatable too, because like we leave in the parts where we order a part and it doesn't fit now, or we leave in the parts where I break a tool or something, like things that like
that's where it's at.
like things that like you maybe wouldn't have filmed initially, because you're just trying to condense as much viral oriented stuff into like a 10 or 15 minute video or 20-minute video. It like I honestly, like I've started enjoying making videos more than too, because I didn't feel like I was misleading people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like this is all perfect and this is all shiny. And I think you see big trends on Instagram too now go away from that kind of perfectly curated lifestyle. Like those shop with me videos going to Gucci or something, like those are getting way less views.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of that is early YouTube. If you had a Lamborghini and you said, I'm young, like 25, and this is how I have this Lamborghini, a lot of people started their channels that way. And it was like, hey, I worked really hard at this lawn mowing business, and now I have 40 employees and I can afford a Lamborghini even though I'm young. That used to be really interesting. But now it's like, I'm 16 and I got 3 Bugattis.
Literally everyone.
Yeah. Because the formula before, like it was, like I think I remember seeing a Mr. Beast video on this a while ago, and it was there's 3 major parts you need to a video to go well. It was like something unattainable, something relatable, and then something emotional, I think is what it was, or something. Like the 3 major parts you need for like a viral clip or video or whatever. And the unattainable used to be being 25 and having a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
Now, like everybody and their mom has that, because you could even like fake having that by leasing one or going to
renting one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like that's not it. Now people actually want the relatable, genuine mistakes and everything else.
Well, it's like go shop with me, and it's like I'm a single mom with 3 kids. This is how I afford to feed my kids well. And that is way more interesting.
Or like what we do, you know, if you're talking about, you know, something relatable and unattainable, like the things we build are unattainable only in the sense that like no one's ever built them before, so they don't exist.
Yep.
Like,
but they seem relatable.
It's relatable because we're just building them with parts and relatively simple tools.
And the barrier to entry is simple tools, but also just the time.
Yeah, right.
That's the main thing is the time and creativity.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's like it's unattainable and relatable at the same time because like it's relatable because you're like, oh well, if I had a couple of tools and a little bit of time, I could do that too. And then but no one's ever seen it before. So that's, I mean.
Like my favorite part of the last chopper video, you lathe down this perfect little piece for the pivot part of the steering.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, this doesn't work. It's trash. And then you hold up the Subaru timing belt pulley. Is that what it is? And you're like, hey, Will. And Will was like, oh, Subaru timing belt pulley. And you were like, yup. And then all you did was machine down one side of it, weld it on, done. Right there. Yep.
Right behind me.
And that was my favorite part of the entire video.
It's a very nice looking part.
Like there's some very nice parts in there. There's some really funny moments. There's tipping it going down the hill.
Yep.
But my favorite part is when you're just digging through the bin and you're like, this little pulley that is at any junkyard is the part that's going to work. You know, like that's nice.
A little bit of Junkyard Wars in every episode.
I missed that show.
Same.
Yeah, that was a good show.
Yep.
What if we
just bring it back?
Dude, you know, we do a little special together.
Well, Junkyard Wars. Crucible Coach Works and Grind Hard Junkyard Wars special.
Funny story. The junkyard that is literally maybe 300 yards from my shop is the junkyard that Whistling Diesel was crushing this Carolina Squat, wherever it is, trucks in that video. Yeah, like 2 years ago.
Nice.
I didn't know that until one day someone was like, yo, you know that was a junkyard. I'm like,
what?
Where's my invite?
What state is he in? I always forget.
It's like Tennessee or something like that.
I have no idea.
I think it's like Tennessee or something. I don't know.
Not
I remember like if you like go to the video, he's like, no one will let me do this for this one place, and he had to travel for it.
Oh, and that was in your backyard. Anything goes.
And that also is the junkyard that's known for like shrapnel blowing out of their crusher and like going into people's houses. So.
Oh yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah. No, like literally, like there's apartment. It's like at the edge of a city. Like there's shrapnel going through people's roofs into like their like bedrooms and stuff.
I feel like. Could you break that down for us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you want to know?
Everything. Like, I mean, let's start at the beginning. This sounds like a very unique situation.
Yeah, so, long story short, there is a scrapyard beside our shop. And throughout the day, like, there's, like, explosions you hear because they crush things that you're not supposed to crush. Like, they have, like, fuel tanks with fuel in them, or I don't know the science behind it. I don't work at a junkyard.
And so this junkyard was here, and then Suburbia moved in around it, or?
I don't think so. It's at the edge of a city, like York City, which is like old city.
Hundreds of years old.
Really?
Yeah.
So they're just really bad at zoning in your area, or?
I think I know that there are like a couple families that have a lot of money in the area and they own everything, and so like they can kind of just do what they want, kind of thing, you know?
America,
like that. Yeah, you know, American capitalism thing. But anyway, like throughout the day there'll be explosions, and some of them are like big enough explosions that things like fall off the wall of the shop. And it's like it shakes your chest, you know.
Really?
You know, you ever experience an explosion like you like feel winded for a second, you know? Like there's some big explosions because
I don't know if I've been that close to that big of an explosion.
Really?
Yeah, no.
I mean, like I've blown up like tannerite or like a propane tank, and that's like a little bit of a douche. Oh, do you want to?
Kinda.
Okay, well.
We are in Idaho.
Scene cut.
Scene cut. Boom.
So anyway. So yeah, they would crush things, and they would get all these like notices that they can't do that kind of thing. Like, and I know like it's real sketch back there because if people will like fly drones over top or whatever, and they'll like shoot them down and stuff. Like
what?
Yeah,
with shotguns.
I don't know with what, but yeah, like they have like a no-fly
junkyard.
zone. Like it's like no, yeah, at a junkyard. Yeah.
So in other words, they're crushing stuff that like.
Really should be crushed.
I'm not going to say the name of the place too because I, you know, I'm so close by.
Yeah. No, but I mean, like,
not that people couldn't figure it out based off my location, but
yeah, they're crushing stuff that like, you know, maybe wasn't the original owner.
Potentially.
If you know what I mean.
I understand like accidents happen, like, you know, sometimes explosions happen. We get that. It happens to all of us.
Yeah,
however,
I mean, I've blown up a couple of gas tanks. It happens.
I mean, we've done some silly things in our lives that maybe should never have been filmed for safety reasons. But anyway, past that, like, yeah, they would crush things, and then the shrapnel from the explosion would blow into the air, and like people would say that they could feel the explosions from like 5 miles away at times. So like how big the explosion, or more. Like I have people that work in the shop that live like 10 miles away.
Wow.
Like I actually have felt that like little like shake.
How did this not destroy their crusher / shredder?
I don't know, but they had to put like a really, really thick plate over top of it. Like they were mandated like inches thick plate. So like what as like a safety thing.
It's like their killdozer version of a crusher.
Pretty much, yeah, exactly. Like I know like someone actually died there like in the last year from like some forklift accident. Like I know they have issues there.
Yikes.
Yeah, it is terrible, honestly. But yeah, they're this known for exploding things and being a general nuisance.
Wow.
And I don't know how they can get away with it. Whereas like we're on private property technically. If you like shoot a gun back here, like the police show up, which we can legally do, but they'll show up like every single time. Yet explosions next door.
Yeah, they'll knock down a drone out of the sky.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you said this is a no-fly zone. Is that
They're no
them protecting it?
That
Or, like,
I don't
on
know.
the DJI app, is it like fly safe?
That I don't know. I don't own a drone, so I can't like see. Like I have never checked the actual like no-fly zones. But
This man doesn't have a drone.
I know
But you like are.
I can fly a drone too, but I don't own one.
But you're into all the nerdy stuff.
I know.
Drones are expensive.
Yeah.
But there's like cheap ones.
Well, the other thing too, like if I bought a drone, it'd be for like film use,
Yeah.
But we self-film, so I'll have someone to pilot it and film me at the same time,
Yeah.
Once I got
Also,
like one of the ones that like self-track you,
Those never work.
They never work.
You've never even all the commercials of those drone tracking features totally fake.
Yeah, I read the comments on them.
Yeah, I got
Yeah.
really excited about our new drone, the Mavic 3 Classic. When it came out, the flagship 360 obstacle avoidance, they had this video of it chasing a mountain biker down a tree thing.
Oh my God.
I was like, if it's 10% as good as that, that's great.
Yeah.
On the 100-mile challenge, we tried it. Wide open clear cut. Bright red. Chang Lee going
Yep.
through the clear cut. It followed us for 2 seconds and then got distracted on a tree and started panning around the tree. And I was like, it couldn't get easier than this.
It's an ADHD drone.
Yeah.
Me as a drone.
The GoPro Karma had a little bracelet.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
That was so promising. I'm like, GPS bracelet, let's go. Those things couldn't stay in the sky to save their lives. GoPro almost went out of business when they dropped that. But
Yep.
yeah, I would say Mavic Air, I think it's like $250.
Yeah.
Really nice 4K. Couldn't use it quite in a lot of windy situations, but you can do this thing where if you set a start point and an end point manually,
Okay. Yeah.
then you do your thing, and while
It
goes.
does that. Yeah.
And
that
that
makes sense.
actually works pretty good on the DJI.
It's a good idea. I didn't even think that was a possibility.
I'll show
There
you
you go.
later.
Yeah. Show me.
Yeah, but yeah, man, when you were talking about blowing up this junkyard,
Yeah.
so last year was the year of this garage,
Yep.
and then probably next year will be the year of my garage.
Okay.
And I didn't even know this coming into it, but the only somewhat reasonable piece of business land in our area I got. And when we were going through the paperwork, I discovered a bunch of really nice stuff. It was an illegal car crushing place.
Really?
I mean, I
So-
knew it was a junkyard
That's
that
so
crushed
cool.
cars. I didn't know it was illegal.
It was illegal. So we had to go through
Story.
with our realtor to see if there were any, like, because if you buy a property like that,
Yeah. Like
and there's like
ramifications.
unpaid fines or like there's a certain amount of oil in the ground, I could be liable for that.
Really?
Yeah.
So the history documentation with my property is actually pretty sick.
Was it
It's
illegal
like-
because it was built so close to
No,
the
like illegal
water?
because they
didn't
were
have a permit for crushing the cars.
and they were probably not requiring titles either. So like people
Yeah.
would just take any car there.
So it was a junkyard, and I could see like it was huge money. This was like a long time ago that this was happening. I don't know the exact year, but
It's probably been
Like-
closed down for the last, I would say somewhere in the range of eight years or so that it's been, or 8 to 10 that it's been totally gone.
there's like a $40,000 fine for like the illegal crushing. Like it was a pretty big deal, but there's all these cool car parts on the lot. And like, so when I think this garage series was really like episodic, but I think for the next garage will be kind of more of an all-in-one video. And I
Well, because
really
none of us
want
will be
to-
actually building it. It'll just
exactly.
be
So it'll be
happening.
less
Yeah.
interesting in that way. Like a regular contractor will just be doing it, but I'll still show everything. But the exciting part of the story for me, I was like, this is so good for the video. Like my realtor was like, oh yeah, there might be all these problems and ground pollution because it was this junkyard with illegal crushing. And I was like, yes, the video is going to be so much better. We're going to find all these little car parts when they dig for the, level of lot and whatever. And we're going to make I have all these old pictures that came with the documentation.
That's cool.
That's sick.
It's going to be sick. So it's like from a chop shop to the YouTube version of a whatever you would call what
Kind of
we
a chop
do.
shop.
Yeah, kind of.
Kind of. I mean, we just cut up a bunch of stuff and turn it into other stuff.
So I'll back you up a little bit. You kind of glossed by. You said it was like a $40,000 fine for illegally crushing cars.
Yeah.
I feel like that's really light.
Yeah, that seems pretty minimal.
I feel like it's very easy to rack up enough money to
pay that fine.
Pay that fine and then some.
Yeah.
That junkyard was so weird. It makes a lot more sense now because I went there a few times to try and get parts, and they did not want to sell you stuff. They didn't even want you to be there. You walk in and they're just like, what? And they're like, hey, can I get this part? And they're like, yeah, it's more expensive than new. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah.
Convenience
No, I'm exaggerating. But it was
is,
it was like $40 for a part that would only cost like 50 new. And I was like, what? That's way too expensive. And they're like, take it or leave it. They were so good. And every time I went in there, which was probably only 3 times over a handful of years, but every time, the office would be more full of parts. They're just pulling parts off of cars and stacking them up in there, but not selling any of them. So it makes sense if they were crushing cars illegally. Maybe people were paying them a little bit to do that.
Yeah.
And they were just not making any money by selling parts.
Get out of here, kid. We don't want to sell you 2 little Subaru pieces
Yeah.
for $40.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think
It was a weird place.
there's a lot of
like it.
places like that are kind of you go there as a customer and you feel like they aren't treating it like a business. It's
Feels
just
like a
what
big
they do, but
inconvenience.
they're not interested in actually making the money side of the business. There's a lot of that in small town America, I think.
There's a
Like,
muffler
get
shop. There's a
outta
muffler
here.
shop in town that's a little bit like that.
Yeah, I know
I feel
exactly
like
the
that's
place
every
you're
muffler
talking
shop,
about.
honestly.
Yeah.
Any
it's
muffler shop I've been to.
It hasn't been painted in 25 years.
Every
it's the
muffler
same
shop.
dude that's been running it for 25
Every muffler
years.
shop.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, I guess if you actually went in there and wanted him to do a muffler on a whole exhaust on your car, maybe he'd have a slightly different attitude. But if you're like, hey, do you have some exhaust tubing I can buy? The easiest thing for him to do is just sell you. He's like, what?
That's not what I do.
They're like, oh, I have this exhaust leak. Can you fix it?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. It's pretty nice.
You
I
could
was
say
thinking, we had this poll on YouTube, and we got some questions. The
What do we
very first one is get Will to say Chang Lee, but I think we already did that.
I say that all the time.
Well, you can say it.
I
how
can
you
say it
it.
again.
Extra special right now.
Chang Lee.
That just hits so hard.
It hits different with the microphones and the headphones.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
probably what they
It's like
wanted.
them right
They
in
wanted
your
to hear
ears.
it at podcast
Yeah.
quality because so far they're
There
just
you
hearing
go.
it from our iPhone quality.
Mercedes.
Oh, this one's kind of interesting. We haven't actually really talked about this very much, and certainly never publicly. But
Ooh.
Mike wants to know about the next Power Wheels build.
Well, I mean, 2 things. I mean, we might eventually build the tank. I don't want to get people too excited, but I've been thinking about it. The next Power Wheels-esque build is not actually going to be a Power Wheels. It's a Dodge Viper body that's fiberglass, and it's probably, 40-50% larger than a Power Wheels body. We traded an ultralight airplane that we got for free that didn't run for this vintage fiberglass Viper body. That's going to be the next Power Wheels style build. I'm not sure what engine I'm going to use yet. I kind of want another KTM V twin just because they're so beautiful. Or maybe a normal crotch rocket motor. Who knows?
Do they make a little V10s so you can make like a real
I
Viper?
wish.
That would be sick.
Micro V10,
Yeah.
itty bitty one.
That would be so cool.
Josh from Vega Industries really, really, really wants me to LS swap it, like actual LS.
He would want you to do that.
And he did. He measured
What
it.
the
he measured,
devil
yeah.
would that be? You would be sitting on an LS?
Basically, I mean, he
essentially?
measured it, and he's like, it wouldn't be that much more engine out the hood than like the Colonel with its engine because it's a bigger hood.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I can't get excited about it because it wouldn't perform anyway.
It
would weigh a ton. It'd weigh a ton, and it would have no room for suspension.
Yeah.
And it's not what I want to do.
I do like the idea of a crotch rocket engine in the front of that thing, though. Just
Yeah.
the
Well,
way
I also
they rev, just
Yeah,
they sound so nice.
I also haven't decided if it should be front or rear engine yet because it's designed to be rear engine. The body is. It's like designed to have an engine in it. It's for a go-kart. So it'd be, spatially much easier to put the engine in the rear. But it depends on what engine I use because like a crotch rocket engine in the front wouldn't really look right. Like it'd either have to be turned sideways so you could go to shaft drive, which would kind of fit, but then it would look like it was a Honda with an inline 4.
What about the motors you got for the tank?
Electric motors?
Yeah, the Leaf one. Is it from Leaf?
Those are junk. There's no point in ever using those.
Okay.
We got bad information, basically.
Love it.
Someone had some self-made credentials in an email, was like, if you use these batteries with this motor, you'll make this much power. And we're like, wow, that is so cool. Let's go.
It's almost not believable.
If it's classic. If it sounds too good to be true, it is.
Yep.
And it was.
Also, like you could make those motors work and you could make good power with them for sure. But they're not the right choice for that because they weigh like 100 pounds each.
And the size of battery you'd need to actually get that power. Once we did the real math, we were like, oh, this doesn't work for a small toy.
Ain't it?
Yeah. And it just doesn't make any sense. And also at the time, like we thought that was a good idea because it was much cheaper than buying new. But now we like work with Electro & Co. and they have motors that are like a quarter the size and a tenth of the weight that can put out not the same power, but a lot.
Yeah.
And so we did 2 of those anyway. Yeah.
And they have a new controller coming out that you can fully program.
Programmable.
Yeah.
That's pretty sick.
In the electric space is what everybody wants and no one can get.
Does that mean that you can make it in order to your garage door?
Yeah, that would be ideal. that wasn't a programming issue. That was that sticky throttle cable
throttle issue. Stuck. Yeah.
Yeah. What happened? Because I just saw the picture, but I don't really know the full.
I just came over here and I saw like a big dent in the door, and I was like, I didn't make that one. What is that doing there?
All I want to say to reference this whole situation is Will and I have a don't get out of the go-kart without turning it off rule that's in the go-kart videos.
Yeah.
All of them.
And there is also 2 shots of runaway go-kart.
Yeah. Where people are like, how would that possibly happen?
Well, I've seen the runaway go-kart shots, but those happened like
while you were drifting.
While you were in it. Yeah. And also I just wasn't really thinking about it. We were getting it ready to go test it outside because the snow was all nice and crusty. And I was just moving it around, and then I hopped out of it real quick to open the garage door, and the throttle decided that was the time to stick on full.
Oh no! I was filming Ethan, and like he like pulled it up to the door and stuff, and he's like, "Okay, we're ready to go." And he, like I shut the camera off, and then he goes to get up, and then goes zhik, and I get it on it right and hits the door, so I get the burnout.
Really?
Yeah, we saw the footage. We used to get the start of it. You know,
that's fine.
We got some of the footage.
We got some footage. Filming it all. That's
awesome.
I'm glad there's a video of it hitting the door.
Well, it's
with
like
no one in it.
It's like it has just hit the door when the camera starts rolling, but it's sitting there just
and Ethan's like
close enough. I'm like, stop. Yeah, I mean, like if I think back to it, I know that you're not supposed to get out of it without turning it off. But I was like, I've driven that thing so little. I was not used to it. It wasn't habit to always turn it off. So I just hopped out and was like,
that habit is only created once it runs away on you.
Exactly. And I hadn't had that experience yet.
Have it run away.
Like even if I had like actually watched the videos where you guys did that, I probably still would have just
happened.
I would have just been like, no, let's go, and then
and electric stuff is just unassuming in that way. Like I've totally like leaned on the throttle of my electric dirt bike before, and then it just takes off and hits the wall in my garage.
Like,
and I'm
you're on.
Yeah, it's like if it was an engine, you probably would have powered it off. You know?
Yeah.
Like you just don't think about that kind of thing when it's electric because it just goes zoop. But maybe it's something that people get more used to, but like dogs will get more used to. I don't know. But Will and I have this thing where we're pretty reckless and dumb and don't make the right decision all the time.
Not all the time.
So
never could have picked up on that.
We have this
it's pretty hard
where we like it if Ethan is the first one to damage something.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, also
Especially because everything is his.
Honestly,
Like the garage is
I
his,
can
the
understand that.
garden fence is his.
yeah.
And like,
No, I'm really glad that I'm the one that broke the door because I was just laughing about it. I was like, oh, that was really dumb. I would have been really annoyed if it had been one of you guys, but it was me.
Last time I was out here, the day after I left is when Will ran into the fence, I think.
Yeah, something like
That
that.
makes
I got a
sense,
photo
yeah.
of Whale bleeding, and I was
Oh.
like, what did he do?
which time was that?
That was the 3-wheeler Grom.
Three-wheeler. Yeah.
Yeah, because Ethan just kind of reset the fence this summer. And Will and I were like, oh, we've had some close calls. We're like, we just really want Ethan to hit the fence for us. And now he did hit it right before I ran into it with the BMW. So I was like, okay, like Ethan did the first new fence damage. Like now if we like do a little drift into the garage door, like we won't feel as bad. Like
No,
Ethan
honestly-
gave it a good punt.
Yeah. Also, the weird thing is it actually opens better now. Because,
Oh, that's I
like,
was realizing that yesterday.
It folded it just a little bit, and then I like kicked it back into shape. But I think the tracks needed to be adjusted a smidgen, so the tracks were a little too close to it, and so they would kind of rub on the sides, and now they don't. So it's great. Also, if we totally destroy it, that's just. I mean, one, we could just replace panels, but it'd be a great excuse to get a better door because that one's kind of crap, and get one that has windows because more windows is more better. So
What we do is inherently risky to nice things.
indeed, we can't have nice things. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure you felt our lens, and it's like
Crunchy.
that's pretty good, and we take really good care
Yeah.
of it. But
Yeah, all your camera bodies look like they've been through like, I don't know, World War II or something.
they pretty much
They've been in the
have.
trenches.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean it's nothing but steel dust and welding sparks
And rocks and
Getting blasted
sand.
by dirt.
I also don't think filming welding all the time is good for your camera sensors.
Absolutely not,
but
I'm sure. I mean,
it
if
is what
lasers
it
take
is.
out camera sensors, I'm sure that
Yeah.
it's like a
Oh,
diet
yeah,
laser.
I didn't think of that. You aren't
Yeah.
supposed to film lasers directly.
We were looking at some footage yesterday that had some
Oh yeah,
broken pixels in it.
Especially if you're using a lens that's even remotely telephoto. Now you're just
Yeah.
Now you're amplifying it.
Yeah.
We got that macro lens. I'm sure the camera
lens is
sensor's gonna
nice.
murder it.
So that lens is nice, though.
it is.
Not
Oh,
for
it's
long.
super nice. But the lens is gonna stay pretty nice. I would bet it's gonna murder the sensor pretty
How
quick.
much is that lens?
I don't know.
Steven knows. Do you know how much the macro is?
Oh, really?
$900.
That's surprising. That's a really crispy lens.
It's really nice.
That's the thing about prime lenses, though. Like you start worrying about focusing, and then you have all these other elements, and it just like, it's
Yeah.
more expensive and easier to break.
Yeah.
But prime lenses, it's like you can get a pretty dang crispy image for
Yep.
a budget.
Yep.
Which is nice.
Yeah. I mean, it's a much simpler piece of equipment for sure.
I got a good question for you.
Oh, no.
We were talking about the Grind Hard movie earlier.
Okay.
If you were to direct the Grind Hard movie, the first Grind Hard movie,
Okay.
what would you do?
Like for the adventure.
For the adventure, or
Yeah,
would you do
so,
it more
like,
of a
I need
build,
more
or
context.
would you do an event?
I feel like the Grindhard story in general is really interesting, like where you guys started at and stuff, but you can't go back in time and film that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless you did like a whole like,
Nitro Circus movie.
yeah, or like you just like pretended like you reshot things like they were. You still have the dungeon over there, so you know what I mean. Like that would be kind of cool. Because I think like to go back to what we were talking about earlier with like relatability and stuff. Like the come up story of Grindhard would be a really good movie in my opinion. Which I think is also kind of low hanging fruit because I think everyone kind of thinks that immediately. But
I think our story isn't even really into Act 2 yet for that story, though.
well, I mean,
Like,
like
I
no one's
think
story's
of-
ever done.
Well, think of the Nitro Circus movie, the big 3D one in theaters. You ever see that?
Actually,
Travis
I
Pastrana.
haven't.
Okay, well, you know Travis Pastrana's story, growing up in
loosely, yeah.
motocross
Yeah.
and then getting into Nitro Circus and now just like doing every
Yeah.
motorsport thing at the highest level possible.
Mm-hmm.
So even before he entered WRC, that movie came out.
Yeah.
And it was like they did a reenactment of him riding dirt bikes as a kid, and like
Gotcha.
they made it look like the whole Nitro Circus crew was together when they were kids. Even
Gotcha.
though they weren't, but it worked.
like actors kinda
really
thing.
good.
Yeah.
Like little kids jumping dirt bikes. It was great.
Yeah.
It was so well done. But he'd already accomplished so much that that movie had a third act. It was like started from jumping little bikes when I was 5 to
There's a spider at your hand and you almost smashed it. on the table.
Oh,
Look at the little guy.
Yeah,
Will,
that's a
get over here.
That's a jumping spider.
It does look like a little jumping.
That thing
Not to
could
detract from your
jump.
story. I'm
I'm
sorry.
gonna scoot over here. But I guess the reason why I don't feel like we're ready to tell that story yet is because we haven't like accomplished that big act 3, you know?
Okay.
So like
That's fine. You have to feel it yourself. If you know, I think from
Yeah.
externally,
that's what you would want.
I feel like people would think you have accomplished that for, you know.
by moving into the new shop. And
But you got a new shop. You have so many huge projects that you got to have completed that are like, I came here this week, and there are so many projects that run, and it can be driven.
You guys were
Yeah.
driving around all weekend.
yeah.
Yeah,
Ryan's driven
All these vehicles.
I mean, the 6x6K truck, the Snowcat just this morning,
the golf cart.
the golf cart.
Yep.
The what else did we drive? I mean, snow bikes, but those aren't.
I mean, there's a
projects.
project that's not been publicized yet. I drove.
Oh yeah.
you
The
can talk about
little
it.
pink
The
turbo
little
quad.
pink, pink
Yep.
turbo quad.
Drove that.
Yep.
The aforementioned garage door murderer.
Yep.
Electric
Exactly.
go-kart.
And obviously, we know like the Colonel and like the
Yeah, you've
camper
driven
run,
those
and I've driven
before,
them
yeah.
a bunch. So like, I'm not that keen to like I have to go drive that right now.
Well, also
you know?
there's a bunch of snow, and they kind of
yeah,
are
they're
not
not
the
that great
best
for
at
that.
that.
Yeah,
Maybe I just need 3 Changleys until I feel like we've made it, you know?
Maybe 4.
maybe yeah. I don't know. Like, I feel like you guys have reached the level of like working like a well-oiled machine. Like
Yeah.
before, like you start a YouTube channel, you're just like I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
you know
it's
what I mean?
Pretty random.
But now, like, you guys have like a pretty good grip on like what to do. You have like a framework that works, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's actually really interesting. Even not even just like the public sides of the builds, but also like the sides of like what it's like dealing with brands, what it's like to schedule out in advance, what it's like to be working on 4 projects at once and trying to like juggle when to release things. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff would
Still
be actually
getting a
really
little
interesting.
used to that, but
Well, and you always will be because it always changes. You know how
Right.
it is. Like 1 year it's this way, and then YouTube is like, "Hey, we should change everything now," and then you have to change everything. You know what I mean? But like, I feel like that side of it would be really interesting because that's not something people publicize.
yeah. That's
Think about how many like successful channels, and I know that you hesitate to call yourself like successful or whatever because you're not in your act 3, but you are. I mean, you guys are living off of YouTube.
We're definitely a successful.
And you have
channel,
employees, and like you have a functioning business that is not just YouTube view revenue. There's more sides. It's a lot of facets to that. And I think that is actually very interesting because, I mean, look at any successful YouTube channel. There's very few of them that actually publicize what it's like behind,
Yeah.
like the actual inner workings. And I know there's reasons behind that too, because like that's the secret sauce. That's your success. You don't want but at the same time, like I don't know. I feel like that would be really interesting.
Yeah, I feel like it's just if on YouTube you're showing this kind of glamorous thing and maybe all that stuff is less glamorous. Like Mr. Beast let people follow him around and make documentaries of him recently, and those were really interesting. But it's also not that insightful because no one else is even remotely close to doing it like that.
And
like he has 10 full warehouses building sets for 10 videos.
But that's
100%
that's
of the
what I'm
time.
saying.
Like,
Though.
it's
You don't have that.
Relatable.
You're not there, and that's what makes it better.
Oh, I see.
It's more relatable.
It's like a more tranche style documentary.
And honestly, like I think it'd be really cool because people could see like the people that you are outside of like YouTube, front of the camera, which is actually very similar to people who are like you guys don't really change yourselves for that, and that's also like I can attest to that because I've been around you guys a bunch. Like, and that I think would be very interesting to watch.
Yeah. I feel like that would probably be something that someone else would have to film.
That's part of it too.
If I was filming it the whole time,
that's a good point.
Yeah,
then you'd kind of miss out on that part of it.
Yeah,
and that's like a big part.
That's a genuine part I didn't think of in that statement.
But what we were talking about is kind of something like the 100-mile challenge on steroids. That's a little more custom,
potentially
like Grand Tour-esque kind of thing.
Yeah,
I mean, one of the ideas is to just actually do it with the Humvees that we bought.
Yeah,
the road trip home and stuff. Like that's one of the options.
That's a good idea too.
That one. I mean, maybe I'm setting my goals too big, but I also am thinking of the Humvee trip as a practice movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, get used to the cameras, get used to the new microphones, get used to the editing workflow of putting something with that. Because live mics and stuff syncing into footage, like this is all going to be
That's
learning
a lot
experience for me.
Yeah.
And it's like the Humvee trip is like going to be really solid and it's a cool story, but it's not like a movie.
Yeah. So what makes it a movie though? What like the Grand Tour does? Go to a different country then. buy something ridiculous in a different country and get it home.
We have talked on the podcast before doing a Grind Hard Goes to Florida.
I mean, that's basically a different country.
But
it's not. But like even if it's like like Mexico, like something that's like maybe not like you have to go cross the sea for.
Yeah.
But you could drive something home that's completely ridiculous.
Mexico would be pretty.
That would be grind hard because like that's completely like up till now it's been all inside the U.S. So it's a different dimension.
Yeah.
Like that would be very interesting too. Hey, look, UPS is here. Know what that means?
Mail.
That means Dungeons and Dragons materials are here.
Yeah, you're no stranger to podcasts.
Oh no.
What have you done in your life? You're just like brushing over. You've only talked about your steelwork and like
I've done a lot of really I've done a lot of things. So some friends and I, we ran a Dungeons and Dragons podcast. I'm not going to name it because I don't want people to go unearth it. I don't think the podcast is
Why not? I want to see this podcast.
Man.
You know how like you make something and then you look at it like 2 years later and you go, ooh, like you're like, yeah, like it's not bad, but like,
But what you're making now, you're proud of.
That's true.
So you wouldn't be making stuff this good now if you hadn't.
It is stepping. It was a stepping stone for sure. I mean, like
learning how to tell stories.
If you had me on this podcast before I did that podcast, I would be very quiet and not feel confident enough to talk on like a microphone. So like there's facets to this, right? So yeah, I was a dungeon master on a comedy D&D podcast that was a little unhinged, but a good time.
Nice.
We had some pretty cool opportunities. We worked with Beth May from like Freddie W's Dungeons and Daddies podcast and stuff. Like we had some pretty
There's some
Dungeons and Daddies. That is the funniest podcast I've ever seen in my life. Like listened to in my life.
That's hilarious.
Anyway,
what do you think it is that brought Dungeons and Dragons from this like low, like more underground, more hardcore nerd thing to more of like a mainstream? Like,
have you heard of Critical Role before?
No.
Do you know who Matt Mercer is?
No.
Do you know the game Overwatch?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you remember the character? They've renamed him since then, but McCree, like the Western cowboy guy in the game.
Yeah.
So Matt Mercer voiced him.
Okay.
He's a voice actor. Okay. He voiced many things like cartoons and anime and all that stuff. But anyway, so there's like a really high production like podcast you can call it called Critical Role. Like we're talking like they probably spend like $100K plus per episode, like big production
podcast.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, and it's
100K plus.
And I'm obviously shooting from the hip, but like they have anything you can think of. Like it's a full studio production, and I think that's what kind of like made it kind of cool. And then you have like Joe, what's his name? Joe Morella. What's his name? Is the I can't remember his name. This big Jack guy. He also has a podcast or like show that's D&D as well.
Well, there's also Stranger Things. I mean,
and Stranger Things
has to be a big part of it.
That was a huge proponent to it too. But even before that, like it was already starting to pop off. Like it went from like there's like 20 or so kind of popular D&D podcasts to like as in the span of years where there was like 400 of them.
Yeah. That's what I'm kind of thinking. Like for me, it seemed like it was a thing that I never heard anybody talk about. And then bam, like everyone was playing, everyone was listening to one of the podcasts of it. Like something hit where it became more than just like a very, like you'd have to be like deep down the nerd rabbit hole to get into it.
I think part of it's a nostalgia thing too. Because like our generation and generation before was playing D&D when they were kids, and now we're old enough to have money and do things with it. You know what I mean? So like, it's like classic games and stuff like that. Like there will always be channels that can make money off of classic games.
Yeah, it's like Pokemon cards blowing up again.
Yep.
It's like, you know what? I've been working hard, and now I have the money to buy a base set, and then you just get one of each because you want to share that with your kid, and then things just all of a sudden skyrocket out of nowhere.
Ethan doesn't know Pokemon.
I mean, I not really. No, I mean, I
like spot out a Pikachu, but
I had a few Pokemon cards when I was in like 3rd or 4th grade because everybody did, and I had them because it's what everyone was doing. But I never like played a game of Pokemon. Or
you still got any of those?
No, of course not.
I was like, I'll take them off your hands.
I'll take some of those 20-something years ago.
You're heavy to Pokemon Go still, aren't you?
Yeah, heavy. I just caught a nice shiny yesterday, actually. But
that's where he was.
Yeah.
He was catching nice shinies.
I've been trying to taper down. My screen time was going heavy on the Pokemon side of things.
Yeah.
I only play for like 20 minutes a day now.
That's healthy.
Yeah. We do this segment on the podcast. It's Wise Words with Will. So I think we gotta get.
We're
one.
already to the wise words of Will.
Yeah,
I think so.
it's always better if we catch them off guard.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Let me crack my back for a second. Man, I'm really not feeling wise today, but I'll try to give some wise words for the people.
What do you do on days where you don't feel wise?
I usually go break the law. But that's what I would used to do. But I really don't know today. I don't have any wise words with me.
There's gotta be something rattling around in there.
It doesn't have to actually be wise, Will. You can say pretty much anything you want.
I noticed one wise decision Will's made lately though. He has a
Okay.
Civic out there.
That's true. He did buy a
Yeah,
Honda
I have talked about this. I'm using a
Okay.
lot of my wisery like
Civic.
in
Wisery.
past podcasts.
Barry.
So yeah, I mean, go buy a reliable car. But honestly, I guess a wise word would be don't always listen to people that tell you what to do, and do your own thing sometimes, because there's going to be a lot of people in your life giving you opinions that are theirs, and you kind of got to live your life and make your own opinions.
Word.
Wise words with Will.
That's wise. Did you have an example of this recently? It seems like it's coming from somewhere.
I have quite a few examples, but a main example would be I recently bought a new motorcycle, and everyone in my life said it was a bad idea.
Because you almost died on one last year.
I am guilty of saying that was bad.
Yeah, so like everyone in my life has said it's a bad idea, essentially. Even my girlfriend at first was like, really? Do you really want another motorcycle? I'm like, yes. And I think it's just like doing something that makes you happy in life over what people would say would be the best option for your life. Because otherwise you're just going to sit around and be like, man, I wish I had done this. I wish I had done that. And
Well, I think you're being pretty wise with it, though. You said you bought the best helmet money could buy. You weren't cheaping out on the helmet.
Yep.
I did see a picture of Instagram of you wearing your suit and your pants.
And the helmet too.
To be fair, you were wearing these little flimsy Nikes. You might want to invest in some riding boots.
they're coming.
Okay,
I also
good,
bought
good.
one of the best riding boots money can buy too. So I'm
you guys are
getting
paying him good here, aren't you?
I'm getting ready to get hit. If I got hit by another truck, I feel like I'd be okay. But
Okay, maybe that's not the right
Maybe you shouldn't say that.
mindset.
No, that's really not the right mindset.
no, but yeah, I think that's a wise word that I would for sure think that I've been thinking about a lot. Is I think you kind of got to figure some things out for yourself, and you can have people point you in the right direction, but you can't always live someone else's life. So
Yeah, I can
I
respect
think
that.
a wise
There you
words
go.
with Will on your behalf I can drop for the people. If you're going to have one of the fastest stock street bikes money can buy, then you should have some of the nicest safety equipment money can buy.
yes,
There you
that
go.
is very
100%.
wise.
We'll just tie those two together
Yeah.
and call it a podcast.
Yeah.
There you go.
Also, on another note, I have to go pee so bad because I've been just drinking so many bubblies. So another wise word, if you're making podcasts, don't drink like 5 bubblies before the podcast.
I can agree with
Alright.
that.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, that's the Set and Bent podcast. It's available wherever you download podcasts, and we'll be back next week.
Awesome.